Welcome to the place of rest, where our aim is to give you language that helps you displace the growing confusion, chaos, and dis-ease of our times. My name is Jonathan Boyce, and it's my pleasure to bring to you today's episode. Virginia and candidate Herb Morgan discuss what led to Herb's choice to run for California State Controller. We hope you enjoy today's conversation.
Welcome, Herb. I'm so happy and thankful to have you on our podcast.
It's my privilege to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm going to just jump right into it because, as you know, there's a great deal of confusion, chaos, and dis-ease around our state budget. And you're our first public official that I've asked to come on and discuss this with me. And you're the first that was willing to take the invitation. So thank you.
Well, good. I hope I don't disappoint you. I'm not yet a public official, but I'm trying to become one. I am a candidate for California State Control.
That's why I wanted to speak to you before
Excellent.
you got into the position, because then it becomes very difficult to get straight answers, frankly.
You were not wrong, Virginia.
First of all, we're dealing with a consequence of a decline in so many spheres of influence. I just came across this quote, but Noah Webster, the father of the English language, said that the corruption of those who vote is imperative to take down a republic. So corrupting the hearts and mind of a generation are important, are significant and essential to tear down a republic. So it disintegrates into a democracy. And at the end of the day, a democracy is a mob rule. And that's why our founding fathers established a democratic republic. So we see the disintegration, again, like I was just mentioning, of so many spheres of influence and structures of authority. And you're running for a very important position. And I'd like you to explain to us exactly what that position is, what it does, and why you're uniquely qualified to deal with this crisis that we're facing.
Sure. Well, I'll start with what it is. In the Republic of California, we're a California Republic, we have 8 statewide elected constitutional executive positions. It includes the governor, lieutenant governor, etc. One of those positions is the state controller. Now, it's a financial position. It's not the state treasurer, and it's not the state auditor. The auditor is actually appointed. The state controller is the chief fiscal and financial officer of the state. And in that capacity, the state controller has immense power over money, the flow of money, etc. Now, not the allocation. That's, of course, the purview of the legislature and the governor, how they spend it, how they allocate it. People elect them, and then they make those decisions. But I'll give you a couple of examples where the state controller has immense power. Number one, the state controller has plenary authority to dictate the method of accounting that is used not only by state offices, agencies, and entities, but every public entity within the state or any entity that receives state money. So that would include things like if a county, which comes under the controller from an accounting perspective, gives money to an NGO, a nonprofit, non-government organization, with the theory that entity will do something to alleviate the homeless crisis. The accounting methodology that they use can be unilaterally dictated by the state controller. The state controller can dictate the frequency by which they must report their expenditures and their financials back to the state controller. And then the state controller finally has unlimited audit authority over any of those entities. So the state controller can not only audit an agency like high-speed rail, the California Highway Patrol, the highway tax revenue, where did it go? The parks, schools, cities, counties, even down to a little nonprofit that's doing something in the community with a grant that came from a city or a county that originally came from the state. So the office is immensely powerful. In fact, some people would compare the powers to DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency that we have at the federal level now, but actually greater in terms of their ability to dig down, drill down, and ultimately perhaps have an impact.
Wow. What compelled you
Yeah,
to run?
so I think what's compelled me over the years is I'm a finance guy. I've spent the last 38 years in finance working on Wall Street. I started a company back in 2004. I was able ultimately to grow that company to $1.5 billion and then sell that company. And so I've spent my life looking at the flow of money, income statements, balance sheets. It's just where my brain goes, right? Everybody's brain is a little bit different. This happens to be where mine goes. And so I'm always intrigued when I see that. Let's start with who we are in the world, right? We're the wealthiest nation in the world. Nobody even comes close to our per capita GDP or income. Even our poorest live better than most people on the planet. Secondly, within that country, we are the wealthiest state in the country. We have immense wealth in our state. We have immense productive capacity. And then I started looking at, well, what is our state? Why are so many of us unhappy with the results? Why do we feel dissatisfied with it? And I looked and I said, well, how much do we spend? And I started with the 2019-2020 budget. We had a budget of $185 billion for our state. And today, this year, we just passed, the year started July 1, a budget of $325 billion. And I thought, well, that increase, 185 to 325, is far greater than the rate of inflation. It's far greater than the rate of our population growth because our population's been flat to declining. Why is our spending going higher and higher and we aren't getting results? My question is to the citizens, if you say, okay, do we have the best K through 12 education system like we did when I was a child in the late 60s, early 70s, and I went to public school in California? We were always ranked number one. I went to public university in California, go banana slugs, and the public universities were ranked number one. Now we're only number one in spending. And so I began to think, I think of it like in the investment world, if I'm looking at an investment and they're making the investment, should we expect a return? And a return in this sense is results, whether it's education, prisons, rehabilitations, homeless, care for the elder, whatever it is, K through 12, junior college, vocational college. Are we getting what we're paying for? Not what should we pay for. That's the purview of the legislature, right? I'm simply the checkbook guy. And as the checkbook guy, my job would be, if elected, to determine that. And so I have become convinced, and I can give you some anecdotes as we progress, that the money is just not getting to where it's supposed to go. Because if we're the richest state in the richest country with the highest budget, why are we still failing? That is just a very legitimate question. So why me? I'm getting towards the end of my career. I'm about to retire. As I mentioned, 38 years in finance on Wall Street. I'm very uniquely ungifted at the game of golf. So I decided that I wanted to take what I've learned over the years. I absolutely believe in service. I absolutely believe in giving back, especially when so much has been given to me by our great state and our great country. I got a great public education, including university. I was able to start a business in this state. I was able to get customers and be successful. And why should I just ride off and retire when I've still got energy? My brain still works. My body still works. I want to help. That's it. And that's why me.
I love it. And we're in crisis. The reality is that it's all of us in measure have to roll up our sleeves and contribute to this conversation. So thank you. I appreciate you clarifying that. The priorities in spending. How would you reel this thing in? Because the quote that I shared from Noah Webster is there has been the voters, the heart, the minds, the conscience, the character of a generation has been corrupted. And I think it's been systematically done so through social engineering and specifically through education, among other things, entertainment, all kinds of different things. But the character and conscience of a generation has declined. And these public officials that are in office currently running our state to the ground, I think we can all see there's a problem, are the fruit of that. So I'm just wondering, and this is a personal question. I'm just personally curious. How do you see turning this thing around?
Well, I think
Obviously, and I don't wanna put you in a difficult position. Obviously, there has to be fiscal responsibility. Where the heck is the money going? But, I mean, how? Yeah, where do you start?
well, first of all, I wanna give you just an idea of how bad it is, and then I do have a solution. And I think because I think in the world of finance, I think ultimately the root is always it always comes down to the money. Why is a war fought? Why has this happened? It's wealth, it's assets, it's money, it's privilege, and that's what people fight. We're biological organisms programmed to seek more, and capitalism, of course, harnesses that part of our human nature, and that's why we love capitalism in America. But give you an example, the city of Los Angeles had spent $2.5 billion on homeless. The citizens of the city of Los Angeles were unhappy that they had not seen demonstrable improvement in their streets, in their public areas. Why is nothing happening? And so they were yelling loudly. The city controller, Ken Mejia, he said, well, I'll audit the spending and I'll figure it out. I'll do my job that I was elected to do. The mayor of Los Angeles, her name is Karen Bass, refused to allow her own financial officer, her controller, access to the books. She literally ordered the people that write the checks to not allow the chief financial officer, the controller, to see the checks. She got her city attorney to opine that he could not see the checks. Well, when that happens, you don't even need to go further to know that you have total corruption. And because we have been one party in total power for 20 years, there has not been a single Republican or a single party other than Democrat, I should say, in statewide office in California since 2006. So it will be 20 years at the time of this election. The one thing we know about absolute power is it corrupts absolutely. We all know this. So ultimately, a federal judge got involved, ordered an audit, and found exactly what we expected. They found that the money was not going out. The money was going out without receipts, without contracts. They found that contracts, for example, I see you have some beautiful woodwork behind you. And if you think about that, you hired one contractor to do that beautiful woodwork. What they found was that in the LA homeless spending, they were awarding the same contract over and over and over. They were so lazy in stealing and in their grift, they didn't even bother to come up with a different contract. So the same contract would get awarded to 4 or 5 or 6 different entities, all in different dollar amounts. But yet,
And without results, without results.
and without results. And so what I discovered is the business model of California. I mean, you could be making, I think I'd have to look at it, less than $100,000 a year in California, and you're in a 9.5% state income tax bracket, right? And you get up to 13% if you become very successful and make over, I think it's 1.2 million or 1.3 million. And you say, wow, this is amazing. The corruption is beyond just the spending on the homeless. It's everything that has to get done has to have studies, right? And they could be bio studies or impact studies and things that aren't actually productive.
Regulations, just the regulation is
Regulations at
killing us.
an epic level. And I believe Republicans, we are compassionate. We want to help people. It's why we're volunteering. It's why we're getting involved. So we're running for office. And we want to have a good environment. But we also know that to have any of those things, you must have a productive economy. And our economy is even though it's the fourth largest in the world, is on decline. Unemployment is higher here than in the rest of the country. I live in San Diego County, where it's higher still than the rest of the country. How could that be with all these resources? So why can the state controller versus the governor or somebody else have such an impact?
Before you get into that,
Yeah,
can I ask you something?
of course.
When the federal judge stepped in, the federal courts stepped in and found corruption, why aren't people in
That
jail?
I think I know why, and this is a theory, because first of all, the auditor or the state controller has no authority to prosecute criminally. But it always comes down to top to bottom, one party, every office. And I just tell everybody I know, I say, look, if you're a Democrat or a Democratic Socialist or whatever, or a Libertarian or a Peace and Freedom or a Green, great. Those are your values. But do you also believe in checks and balances? Wouldn't it be nice, okay, your legislature, 80% of the elected people in the California legislature are Democrat. 80%, even though about 42 or 43% of us generally vote Republican. Wouldn't it be nice if you had somebody from the other party to do a check and balance on them? So somebody from the other party, me, in the controller's office, or on the criminal side. So if I am the state controller and I find criminal thing, I don't have prosecutorial authority. I can only refer to the attorney general. But if the attorney general is part of an elected slate of one party, and if they're all in this together, and if corruption exists, because remember, $325 billion is being spent. That is benefiting not just the end recipients, children in school, right? Or food served in our prison, or highway maintenance. But there are businesses along the way. There are for-profit businesses along the way. There are nonprofit businesses along the way. This is a massive money laundering scheme. I believe less than 25 cents on the dollar of California state spending actually gets to the people, actually delivers services. Because there's no way you could spend $325 billion and at the end of the year say we have a deficit. Are you kidding me? A deficit with you give me $250 billion and an honest team, I can deliver twice the services you get today. We could give our school teachers 40% raises, our first responders. I have a daughter-in-law who's a public school teacher. She routinely uses her own money to buy supplies for the
Yes,
classroom. That
yes,
is,
yes.
you policemen of front lines without all of the supplies and the tools they need. Our fire
Supplies and tools and mental health care
and mental
for
health
the
care, firefighters.
predictable pain, for the predictable damage, expected damage that they need, and our veterans for on-the-job
Yes,
training. They can't get the help they need.
forest management. Forest management to
Yes.
prevent the fires, tools and equipment. We should have twice as much equipment on the aerial side for fighting fires. We have the money to do all of those things. We do not need to raise taxes. We need to just make sure the money's going where it's supposed to go. And it's just become this giant business model of greed and of corruption. We had an LA city councilman indicted a couple of weeks ago, an audit of the, I mentioned
Who was that? Who was that?
I knew you'd ask his name. I forget, but if you do a quick Google search, uh, you
What
would,
was his title?
city councilman. No, he's an elected member of the city council in Los Angeles just a couple of weeks ago.
That's what I mean. The corruption is in the heart of a generation. And until this corruption and the character and conscience of the voting class rises to meet the challenge, I don't think there's any amount of fiscal responsibility that's going to transpire. We've got to vote people that are corrupt out of office.
Yes.
And I think it's persuading people of the measure of corruption. And I think that's why you were the last office that I really was interested about. And yet I realized this morning while I was having my quiet time and just praying, you are the one person that we were able to get on here. And the more I thought about it, you're really the most important because we've got to expose the level of corruption that's going on with our spending. The money is not getting to the people, but we've got to help people understand and believe that it's a decline in the character and conscience of the voting elect that are being seduced by the lies and the promises. And like sheep to the slaughter, we are bankrupting our children's future and that of a beautiful state. And I don't know where everybody thinks they're moving to. They think they're leaving California. Where do they think they're going? If California falls, the ripple effect of this throughout the nation is going to blindside an entire generation. There's nowhere to run from, nothing to run to. We've got to stand in the front lines of this conversation and say, somebody is lying. Something is deeply wrong here. And thank you so much for your message because you're bringing a lot of very specific details and clarity to me. And you're finding a way to really just simplify this, not in the form of narrative and political BS, but honestly, data, information, narrative, stories. Go look this up. The money is being laundered. This is a laundering operation we're dealing with in this state. And not just here, by the way. It's just we're hemorrhaging here, and they know they've got to take California down to bring down a nation. It has to happen. So we have to resist this cry for democracy and protect what's a republic. And that is that these elected officials are in positions of authority by the voluntary consent of the people. But if the people are being deceived and they don't have these facts, Herb, it's going to be hard to turn this thing around. And no disrespect intended, by just getting in an office thinking we're going to chip away at the numbers. I think in this year that lies before us, we need to acknowledge the decline of the character and conscience, our own character and conscience, and how we've selected this. We've been asleep. We've been neglecting really getting into these conversations and finding out, hey, what the heck? Why are we going bankrupt? And who gains by us becoming bankrupt and who loses? There are those that gain by destroying California.
There's no question about that. That is the case. Yes, unfortunately.
And I hate to paint a dim picture. Actually, I think it's a picture of hope. And you've given me an incredible amount of hope by clearly identifying our problem is California, that our politicians are laundering money through the state. The powers that be, the forces behind this. Money is being laundered through our state. We have the resources to fix all of our own problems, but we have to get this right in this upcoming election. And there's so much corruption even in how the elections are conducted, and even in this Proposition 50. They obviously know the gig's up, so now they're trying to redistrict our state. Are you able to speak to that at all?
I can speak. Yes.
Or did I just throw too much out there? Sorry, that was a little vent sesh.
There was a lot, but you did talk about one thing that really stuck with me that you mentioned is morality. That starts in the home, in my opinion. And if people are saying, well, this is the system, so I'm going to be part of the system, a corrupt system, and I'm going to award, because I'm on a city council and I can award a grant to my husband or wife's nonprofit who then spends it with my other for-profit. That's just wrong. I'll give you an example of how bad California is. Are you familiar with the term behested payments?
No.
So in most places, it's illegal for a government official to advocate one person make a donation to another entity. Okay? And in California, we allow this. So the governor, as an example, can advocate to a big corporation to make a donation to a nonprofit entity, and the governor must disclose it. This is the California Fair Political Practice Commission. They publish this data on their website. But our current governor, for an example, you can download the spreadsheet right from the website.
What's the website and what's the spreadsheet?
A California Secretary of State behested payments. You can just type that into your search bar. You'll get right to it and you can
Okay.
donate it. I happen to have it on my screen right now, and I'm just looking at some of the top, payments, right? Facebook donated $25 million, and it says it's in support of COVID-19 response to the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. Well, I'm sorry, I don't think Mark Zuckerberg gives away $25 million without expecting something else back, right? You've got California Community Foundation donates $12,500,000 to support Project Home Key. T-Mobile, the cellular company, $12.3 million to Californians Dedicated to Education Foundation. And so, and then you've got the Climate Action Corp. All of this, Gavin Newsom has advocated for donations totaling $237 million over the last 5 years. Well, that's really not legal in many places. It's legal here. But this is to your point of maybe we need to crack down on some of these things and say, no, you're in a very powerful position as a governor or a state controller. You need to not be advocating for a lot of these donations to these active nonprofits.
Well, it's brokering power.
Well, that's precisely what it is. In many states, or in most states, that individual would be in jail. But here it is legal. This comes from moral teachings in the home, gets to moral teachings in the school. I would submit that, we've lost a lot of the moral teaching in the school. We've replaced it with woke ideology, which is destructive. There's a lack of sort of understanding of right and wrong anymore. There's a justification of things that we as a society, as a culture, have generally thought of as wrong. And it's been replaced because these kids have been taught things about their heritage and things about their culture that are simply untrue. And it is a major, major, major problem. I am running for California State Controller, herbmorgan.com, please donate, to deal with one small part of that, the financial side. But there are some unbelievable people running for state office that are stepping away from their productive lives. There's a woman named Sonia Shaw who's running for superintendent of public instruction, who has wonderful ideas about the schools. Don Wagner is running for Secretary of State. We have multiple good candidates running for governor. Here's what it takes. We have to actually vote. We have less than 1/3 of registered Republicans generally go and actually vote on election day. And so I forget who it was. Was it Jefferson or was it Franklin who said, you get the the government you deserve? We have to vote. That's what it is. It really is that simple. Good people with good moral, with good foundations need to go out and vote for good people.
Perhaps if people can put what you just said, if I could put this in context, correct me if I'm wrong. Imagine all the money you're paying in taxes. It's going into people's pockets. It's going to utter corruption.
Yes.
It is being laundered. The money you're tithing, the money often that you're supporting these nonprofit organizations with, the money that is being circulated between huge corporations into nonprofits to the government. There is a vast web of corruption, and it will not end until we say no more.
So
that is the bottom line.
That is the bottom line. And here's how we say no more. I am going to require on day one daily reporting from any entity that receives state money, not a quarterly consolidated financial report, not an annual financial report that's audited, but then they don't correct the audit deficiencies. I'm going to require an installation of an API that connects the bank account of whoever I'm wiring money to. If I'm wiring $8 billion to San Diego County or Orange County or LA County, then that county must, on a daily basis, every transaction, every in and every transaction out must be reported, not just to me in Sacramento, but reported online for anyone to see. And then we will develop artificial intelligence tools that will analyze that data and draw our eyes to things that might require further investigation. It will identify connections that with all the humans and all the labor we could never figure out. But if there's an entity receiving money, a nonprofit, to take care of homeless, we're going to A, do a performance audit to see if they did it, but B, who are the officers? Who are the incorporators? What are all their web of connections? Who are their Facebook connections? Who are their LinkedIn connections? Who did they go to school with? Of all the vendors that they then spend money with. And we have the technology to identify this and really take the efficiency of our government spending to a level we've never seen. That will make this state, once again, the economic envy, the moral envy, will have total and complete disclosure for everybody to see, and it will be a model for the rest of the country. We can do it, and we can do it very quickly if we get into office, if people vote. And to do that, obviously, we need support. herbmorgan.com. Endorse, tweet, like, donate, vote more than anything else. All of that needs to happen.
Yes. Well, we're in alignment with your values because all you're saying is accountability. If you're
That's
going to
it.
get anything from the government, we just want to know, we want you to tell us that you're doing what you said you would do with it. That's it.
That's right. Anybody who gets the state money, we have triple the gasoline tax of all of our neighboring states. Okay, great. Do we have better highways? The answer is we don't. Okay, well then where's the money going and why? Why does Utah have a third of the gasoline tax of California, but better highways? I don't know. But if we put the transactions online and it's transparent, anybody sitting at home, an armchair economist, a college student, a researcher, a think tank, a citizen, Joe Sixpack, they can look at the spending and go, I see, you're overpaying for this, or you're paying money to this person and they're not actually doing the work. And it will shine this amazing light. And once that light is shown, you will find the answers.
Life is in light. There's no light, it's a slow death. What's happening to our first responders is criminal. And I know that, I don't know how aware of this you are, but suicide is the number one cause of death, not on the job.
And veterans.
Training, because the workman's comp's thing is so corrupt now that they deny them. They deny our first responders for predictable care. Imagine this, everything, when it's a predictive on the job, it's assumed, it's presumed that they're going to need mental health and their bodies are going to need structural intervention in the course of their work. So they promise them everything and give them nothing. And just so you know, when it comes to the mental health crisis and the fragmentation of the character and conscience of the generation, the first responders are the ones that show up for that. So not only are they afflicted by the same thing, but they're taking these calls multiple times a day. And when their crisis comes, and by the way, the life expectancy of a first responder is 5 years after the retirement.
Wow.
So they make all these sacrifices and they're expected to live 5 years, and the system fails them. They deny. That's the joke. They deny. And in that time, there's so much frustration and so much shame because these guys are, they show up for conflicts. They don't run for help from them. So what happens? Then they medicate. So we got to get this thing turned around on so many levels. I didn't want to throw that monkey wrench in beyond just mentioning it briefly, but yeah, I'm in the fight with you, brother, and I'm going to do everything I can to support you, and I'm going to get the word out.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Herb. It's going to be a pleasure to rally with you. I appreciate your common sense approach to this very, very serious problem.
Well, it's been my pleasure. It's a privilege to be with you. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for hearing about my financial ideas. herbmorgan.com.
We hope listening to this episode has brought you closer to experiencing the freedom of wholeness and healing. If you have questions or comments about today's episode, or for updates about R.E.S.T, please visit our Instagram or Facebook at The Place of R.E.S.T. If you would like more information about Virginia, or to support and join the cause of R.E.S.T, please go to theplaceofrest.com/donate or call 949-289-5935. Thank you for listening to Rest with Virginia Dixon. We'll see you next week.